Good evening, friends. I'm Dr. Aajay Shah, and I'm bringing this another great live. Today we have a guest who I absolutely been impressed for last 2 years. He's been doing his work for many years, but I came to know about him about 2 years ago. So we'll talk about him. Let me give you update on our page. Now we have about 48,000 followers, a lot of worldwide followers. We are trying to help not just to America, but also the people in the world because I realized that many chronic disease, some of the developing countries just can't afford it. If they get sick, they don't have the resources to go and have a stent placed or have a bypass surgery or have expensive cancer treatment. So I think my mission is just to not help the people in America, but also people in the whole world. And with that movement, we are bringing various guests. We are actually bringing about 3 to 4, almost 5 guests every week, all various topics, various subjects. We are also expanding into showing the healthy cooking demonstration with the help of my wife. So we are definitely growing. We are obviously, thinking how we can help you more. I actually will sincerely appreciate if you all invite at least 25 friends every week from your Facebook group. It's very easy. Just go to your like page, select 25 people, and invite to our page. So with that update, let's start with our today's guest. Again, today's guest is a whole food, plant-based vegan who lives a healthy lifestyle, who actually himself has gone through a health scare. He will tell us about it. And now he has become a leader, a mover, a shaker in Midwest and in the whole America. And he is actually planning many other projects, including helping many of the underserved people. So we'll hear from him. Let's welcome Paul Chatlin. Welcome, Paul.
Well, hi there. Bear with me with a little technical difficulty. Great way to start. Hold on, please. There we go. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for inviting me. I am so honored to spend this hour with you, the people that you surround yourself. And today we'll have some fun because I have questions for you as well.
That's great. I'm ready. So the simple question is, where did you grow up and who influenced you in your childhood?
Well, I grew up in Detroit. I spent my first 13 and a half years going to school in Detroit, right behind the Northland roller rink. If anybody knows 8 Mile and Lodger, that's where I grew up. Spent a lot of time at Edgewater Park. Went to Henry's as a kid growing up, which was the hamburger place before McDonald's, long before, and Red Barn was by me. And then my parents moved to West Bloomfield at the age of 14. And boy, I went from being a quite a minority in one area to a real minority in another, but it was educational. I had a great life growing up.
That's great. And what kind of work you do now? And like what college did you go to?
I graduated in a business degree at Michigan State University, and I own a telecommunication consulting firm. I have for almost 20 years now, but my real work started 7 years ago when I came up with the idea of giving back this incredible gift of health with plant-based nutrition, no oil. So I'm a vegan plus, so I don't take on any oil and no meat, no dairy. And it all started with a health scare, as you had mentioned earlier.
So please tell us about your health prior to that health scare. How many years ago how many years before it was, and what kind of food you are eating, what kind of life you are living before that health scare?
Well, I will share with everybody. Growing up, I was always a workoutaholic, so I was working out all the time. So I thought, hey, if I work out every day, and it went from playing tennis to racquetball to playing baseball. I played some college baseball. I lifted weights. I was always active. But I thought that, well, hey, if I work out every day, I could eat whatever I want. So I was that guy who'd go to the restaurants, and my wife and I went out a bunch. And I was the guy who would say, don't give me a loaf of bread with oil and the spices. Give me 2 loaves of bread with a lot more spices and oil. And when they say, what do you want to drink? I'd say, I'm probably going to have 3 or 4 Cokes. So just give me 4 Cokes to start. And I would just eat. I mean, my idea of a good pizza back then was loaded with everything. And if I felt good, I would have double cheese. And I would just eat. There was no restriction until I turned 55. And at that point, I thought I was in good shape. I was powerlifting at the time. I was up to 235 pounds of pretty good muscle. And I had that morning wake up that changed my life forever. So back then, at that moment, my cholesterol number was, you ready? 347. So that was at its peak. I was under doctor's care for about 10 years. And, I was a person who started with Zocor, and he put me on that because back, probably in the 90s, when my cholesterol got close to 300, he said, we're going to get you on Zocor. Unfortunately, I got the side effects of Zocor. So basically one day woke up, couldn't walk. Muscle enzymes were through the roof. He thought I may have MS, took me to an MS clinic to find out I didn't have it. I just got off the meds 3-4 days later, I was fine. Then he put me on Lipitor. So I tried Lipitor. 7 months later, side effects, got off Lipitor. And the only other statin they had at that time was Pravastatin. So he put me on the biggest dosage he could, 800 milligrams of or 80 milligrams of Pravastatin. And I baselined my cholesterol from 347, and I baselined it at about 280 for the next 5-6 years. My doctor was okay with it. I mean, he kept saying, eat egg whites, go to skim milk. That was the information I got. I listened to my doctor, but I couldn't get that cholesterol any lower until I turned 55. And then one day I woke up with severe, and I mean severe, chest pains. And what was interesting about it as I look back is I would lay in bed, I could feel it on my chest. It was a heavy pain on my chest, and I would just lay there. And sometimes it was a little tough to breathe, but I'd get through it. About a half an hour later, I conducted my day, and at night it would come back and get me a little bit. And I went ahead and lived with that for 3 months. For 3 months, I would just lay in bed and then slowly get my day going. And then one day I was at an appointment and I was walking from one office to another. I could not take 7 steps without just stopping. I was sweating and it was just hurting. And that was the moment where I said, I can't keep this to myself anymore. I've got to go see the experts.
Wow, wow. Pretty close call. I think, and this is like you said, I think many of us, many Americans think that if you exercise regularly and if you burn the calories, you can actually eat whatever you want because people think just by burning calorie, you can get away. But actually, all the micronutrients you need, all the inflammatory food you eat, all those things deep down are inflaming all those arteries. So exercise is not a answer to unhealthy eating. So I think you were one of the millions of examples in America. So please tell us, how did you come to know about this new healthy whole food plant-based no oil lifestyle? Who mentored you, and did you read about in the books? Did you watch videos? Did your doctor explain you, or how did you start at that?
That's a great question. First, let me give you a little back history, which is as a young man, between the ages of 10 and 12, my family was centered around my dad and his 3 brothers. I was very young. And during a 3-year period, all 4 of them needed bypass surgery. Now, again,
Wow.
I was 10, 11, 12 years old, and I really wasn't aware of things other than 2 of my uncles died on the table. Another uncle was never the same mentally and had to be put away. And it was the only time I saw my dad cry. He cried for 4 days with all the tubes and all the pain he went through. And I was 12 years old. I was 12, 13. So again, but these gentlemen, these uncles, these greats of my life, they were obese. I was not. So that's where I said, well, if I work out, then I'll be okay. So when I woke up that day and it took that walk and couldn't walk any further, I made a decision right then. I called my doctor and he immediately said, come on in, I'll see you right now. And he heard a heart murmur that he had not heard before. And immediately he made a call to Beaumont Hospital, got me a cardiologist where I saw him 2 days later. And they did a series of tests up to a heart catheter and a heart biopsy. And I'll never forget him looking at me after the test. And he said, well, I've been doing this cardiology for 30, 40 years. And my experience is telling me, and I'm sorry to tell you, you either need bypass surgery or a heart transplant. So let's schedule a heart catheter now. And that was about 2 weeks later. So on the way home, now I love my wife. I want to make that so clear because she's the best friend I've ever had. And I never told her about the pain I was having because I didn't want to worry her. Probably not the smartest thing, but I didn't want to worry her. So on the way home, I stopped at her office. I asked her to come in the conference room. And I said, honey, here's what's going on. And I explained to her what was going on. And she started crying. And her boss walks in and he asked what's going on. We explained to him exactly what I was up against. Well, as it turned out, about 2 years prior, he had a lung transplant done at the Cleveland Clinic. So he knew a lot of people there. So he said, just stay there in the room. And he made a few calls. And the first miracle I got was he got me into the Cleveland Clinic the day before I was scheduled to do my heart catheter at Beaumont.
Wow.
So here I am, my wife and I were driving to the Cleveland Clinic. I had never been there before. Honestly, I did not know anything about nutrition. I just knew I was hurting. And I also knew that Cleveland Clinic was the heart hospital. So I get to the Cleveland Clinic early in the morning. And of course, they have hundreds of cardiologists there. And then my second miracle occurred, which is they assigned me to a cardiologist. And I want to show you this. This is really, I keep this with me. And I'm going to bring this up here just to everyone to see it. The important thing on this is, let me just read it to you. It says, Dr. Hannah. So Dr. Hannah was the director of heart failure intensive care unit, section of heart failure and cardiac transplant medicine. So he had gotten all the information from my doctor, and he really thought that a transplant was probably going to happen, but he scheduled me with all the same tests that I had before, but we also did a heart catheter. So just to tell all the people about the heart catheter, I was more worried and scared than it hurt. I had it done in my wrist, so the recovery was half the time. And it wasn't painful at all, but it was humbling because within about a 4-minute period, they literally shave you top to bottom because if you need immediate surgery, you're ready to go. They wheel you in, they do the heart catheter, and I could hear him because you're in twilight. So you're not totally knocked out, but you're not totally awake. And I hear my doctor going, yes, yes, yes. I'm like, why would you be happy? He says, Paul, I got good news. The good news is you don't need a heart transplant, but you do need immediate bypass surgery. You're 100% blocked in your right artery, and your two others are in 75% blocked. So you're sitting there and I'm going, okay, so now I'm thinking of my dad. I'm thinking of my uncles. I'm saying, just breathe, just wake up. Whatever you do, wake up. Because, the ability of doing bypass successfully, because Cleveland Clinic, if you walk in, it says 100% of our bypass patients survive. Now, they don't tell you if they're all still there because, I kind of think, who's back there with the stop clock, making sure that they bring you back after 4 or 5 seconds? There's no one but the doctors back there. So I'm sitting there being wheeled in for bypass surgery. I'm just, praying that I'm going to wake up. And then I took a moment and said, Lord, if you get me out of this mess, I promise I'll give something back. Now, I admit to everybody, I've made that promise throughout my life and I didn't always keep it. This one meant something to me, but I knew that he wasn't going to help me. I get to the door of the surgical, the surgical area, and my doctor says, stop the gurney for a second. He looks down at me. He says, okay, you'll be the second person I've ever offered this to in 20 years. But if you're willing to make a full nutritional change today, maybe you don't need the surgery. I said, yes, I'll do whatever you want. Now, remember, I never met this guy before. I've never been to Cleveland Clinic. I've never met him. I didn't know anything about nutrition. And I was saying yes to something I knew nothing about. But what I didn't want to do is I didn't want to have bypass surgery. I just didn't want to have it. So all of a sudden, he pulls me back away from the door. He gets his cell phone. And here's the third miracle. He makes a call. And I hear him say, hi, this is Mays. Essie, how you doing? I got somebody I want you to talk to. Just like that. Now, up to that moment, I had never heard of Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn. Never heard of him. He hands me the phone and Dr. Esselstyn says, Paul, why don't you just recover and go on home and I'll call you in the morning. We'll talk. And I'm like, great, no surgery. I'm going home. So we drove home, got home at about 3, 4 in the morning. And at 8 o'clock, he's calling me. He says, get my book and read it. I'll call you back in a few days. A couple days later, I got the book, read it, and I said, okay, I'm all ears. So he spends an hour with me. And that was the moment that changed my life because I took all my meat, dairy, and oil out of the house. gave it to charity, and I spent the afternoon at Whole Foods learning how to label read. I was amazed at the different names of sugar and oil and salt. It's crazy. That was the last day I had meat, dairy, and oil. But to share with everybody, it wasn't just that I had a blocked artery, and thank God I was an athlete because I had collateral arteries off that right artery. So it's amazing when you look at it, it's like your body is saying, I'm not doing well, but I want you to live. It looked like an incredible big spider's nest of new arteries. That was just an amazing visual. So I also had, though, I found out an enlarged heart, leaky valves, scarsidosis of the right side of the heart. I had a left bundle block and a heart murmur and a fully blocked right artery. So their idea was, we need to get you in bed rest for a couple months because we got to shrink the heart so the valves aren't pumping as hard as they are. So somebody like me who's so active, I was taking these pills and literally sleeping 16 to 18 hours every day. And there were moments I'd wake up and all I could do is muster up enough to grab a couple cookbooks, because you think about whole food plant-based 7 years ago here in Michigan, I was the only one who even knew about it. And if other people knew, I didn't know who they were. All I had was a handful of cookbooks and me. And there were moments, quite honestly, I thought, I'm not happy. Maybe I should have had the bypass. But a couple cool things happened. First, I wasn't a big vegetable eater, but I said to myself, if I've got to eat a lot of vegetables, I could do anything for 14 to 21 days. Side note on that, just so you know, I believe in a 60-day. Like anybody could do anything for 60 days because I've gone to all these little kickstarts. Sorry, I'm segueing. I'll take you away. I'll bring you right back. You always hear these 14-day, 21-day kickstarts, immersions, whatever. But every time I've gone to one or I've talked to people, when they get to that 13th or the 14th day or the 20th or the 21st, what are they talking about? They're talking about what they're going to eat bad when they get home. You put somebody on 60 days and you do a lipid panel on them and they're going to lose 20 pounds, their numbers are going to drop. So at about the 14th day, guess what happened? I started enjoying the vegetables. It was like, oh my God, there's so many vegetables to choose from. I said, well, I'm going to try every single vegetable Whole Foods has, and I'll decide which ones I like, which ones I don't like. Now, I don't love them, so I'm always going to be honest with people, but I like them. And what I do love is how I was starting to feel. At about 2 weeks, maybe a little bit more, my angina went away. I started feeling good. And then, crazy, I weighed 235. I started dropping weight, like just by eating fruits, vegetables, beans, and whole grains every day. And, after about a 2 to 3 month time, I was able to start getting out, going out, doing things. And even though it changed my life because I used to go to restaurants all the time, now I would knock on a few doors of restaurants and explain what I need to make. And some of them here do make them here in my area for me and for the group. But I started learning how to cook. So I don't like cooking, but no one was going to cook for me. So I went to the Esselstyn cooking class, the half-day class, and they gave me the invoice and they gave it to me. And I said, well, I'll just submit it to Blue Cross Blue Shield. I'll get reimbursed because right now it costs over $100,000 to have a bypass surgery. And it only cost me $700 to go to their class. I saved Blue Cross Blue Shield $119,300. They're going to love me. They denied it. I said, oh, that's my give back. I made a gurney promise. I was going to give something back. So that's what I thought. I'm going to fight to get a pay code, establish a Blue Cross Blue Shield. But they said the only way that can happen is you have to work with the Michigan legislature. And that's something I did not want to do. So it was really bothering me to say, I promised to give something back. What am I going to give back? And I realized something, that I cannot be the only person who has heart disease in my community. So I put a $20 ad in the paper and I said, hey, I've had heart disease, a blocked artery. I actually could read it for you word for word, but it basically said, here's where I am. But if you have interest in maybe stopping or reversing your heart disease, I'm inviting you to my house. Here's my address and here's my number. Call me. The first 20 people are invited. Within 3 days, I got 30 calls. And it was like, wow, the first 20 people came to my house. About 2 weeks later, I opened up my cupboards. I made a meal for him, and we talked. And what I'm so proud about is of the 20 people, 12 of them are with our organization, and 5 of them are still hosts for our small groups. And we'll talk about that in a moment. So I said, okay, that was great. So maybe I need to do it again. So I did it a second time, the exact same results. So then I said, well, clearly there's a need for this. I'm not a doctor, because they were asking me a lot of questions, and I did a lot of research into nutrition. As I mentioned before, didn't know anything about it. So I started reading the China study. I read, how to prevent and reverse heart disease. I read the DNORS. There was enough information to learn, but there clearly isn't as much as there is today. And but yet I'm not a doctor, so I could give opinions, but I can't give advice. And people wanted advice. So I decided to call the heads of cardiology at the 3 major hospitals in the Detroit area. And I said, I need to get a holistic cardiologist. Give me a name, 3 names. One name was repeated. It was Dr. Joel Kahn. Now I figured, well, since his is repeated 3 times, I'll reach out to him first. I never heard of Dr. Joel Kahn in my life, but I called him up. He invited me over his house. We spent 3-4 hours together. And I realized right then that he would be the one I think I could grow this idea of this plant-based awareness. So we scheduled our 3rd meeting at Beaumont Hospital, and we thought we'd have 30, 40 people. We had 123 for the first meeting, 147 for the second one, and then it got a little political. 2 days before the 3rd meeting, they said we can't meet anymore at Beaumont. Listen, I appreciate Beaumont allowing us to be there to start, but why 2 days before? Are they a standard American diet hospital? They didn't like our message. We had too many people. Doesn't matter anymore. But I had 2 days to find a place. So I'm looking at churches and synagogues. I'm looking everywhere I can. I called the Birmingham school systems, and they said, we will open our doors for you. So that's part of the reason why I'm a loyal person, and they've been awesome and great to us as an organization. And that's where we have our meetings. So now I could share with you a couple statistics. One is, me personally, today, I weigh 164 pounds. So that's from 235 to 163. I'm 62 years young. I feel great every day. It's like I was a product of the 70s. So I'm going to tell everybody, I tried everything I could in the 70s. Some was fun, some were more fun, some of it was bad. The point is that the best drug I've ever been on, whole food plant-based, because I've got energy all day long and I'm never sore. So I do go biking 20, 30 miles every day. Love it. Could do it the next day. Never feel bad. I think the important number I want to share with everybody is my cholesterol number today is 88.
Wow.
So
let me stop you here for a second, because I think you cover so many great points. Number one, that the Dean Ornish data from 1990 and Dr. Esselstyn's data from his initial group of patients and then the 200 patients he followed clearly proves that heart disease can be reversed very rapidly. Symptoms can be actually reversed within like 2 to 3 weeks. A lot of people become angina-free within a month, number one. Number two, even though this knowledge is widely available, many times because of industry interest, hospital interest, pharmaceutical companies, the stent companies, they all don't want to have this thing come to the forefront of the media. So many patients actually are not even aware that there are therapies which are comparable to stents and bypass, and many doctors don't offer it. I think you are fortunate that that doctor gave you that option. And I think that we need to change. And I think my mission is to make every American aware that this option is available. So they will go and tell their doctor that I want to do it. So even if the doctor doesn't offer, patient will insist. And that's where I think we need person like you, number one. Number two, cholesterol is such a great way to see how healthy you are eating. Your cholesterol prior was 300 plus, and now it's below 100. I mean, that's like no drug can do that. I mean, to me, that's just a miracle. I mean, many doctors will say that this is an error, but actually it's a proof that you can lower your cholesterol without medication. Number two. Number three, I think many people don't realize, in my opinion, that you can get back your normal life even while you are living with a heart blockage. Many people are scared, partly because of doctors scare them, that once you have a heart blockage, it's a one-way ticket to very poor life and early death and many procedures. That's not true. Actually, you are a living example that you actually have gained more energy and more into your life than even before you were diagnosed to have heart blockage. So I think, and now that you have taken up this mission, educate and to actually make this thing available and actually make it to a point where insurance companies cover it. So I think we definitely want to hear. But before we go to your organization, let me ask you, what is your typical day of eating, exercising, sleeping, stress management? How do you handle all this organizational responsibility plus taking care of yourself? What do you eat and what other things you do in a day?
Well, that's a good question. Before I forget, because I will be upset if I forget, I want to admit freely that I have a true, deep respect and love affair for you, Dr. Shah, because as a cardiologist, to be able to come on and share your knowledge with your audience is to me is what I dream about. And I will get into that. I'll answer that question, but allow me to say this: when you're ready to let the world know about it, you got me, because we did a series called Doctors Teaching Doctors, where we invited 130 doctors to be taught by 4 of our plant-based doctors. And it was a great success. Unfortunately, we couldn't keep repeating it because of just actual money. It costs a lot of money to put it together and get the CME credits and everything. So that's something that we have in our wheelhouse that I'd gladly give to you when you're ready. And always remember my whole position, and just I feel exactly how you do, which is you'll hear me always say nutrition before pills or procedures. So my day is regimented. Okay, just I'm a regimented person because I've got a lot of activities. Generally speaking, because I am whole food plant-based, I need to be close to the bathroom in the morning. Okay, I don't want to get into it graphically. No one wants to hear it, but I will share with you a little observation. I know it might be too much information, so my apologies. Prior to going whole food plant-based, I would sit at the bathroom and it was an ordeal. It took stress and time and pushing. Now I used to saying I pee longer than I poo. Okay, now that's kind of how I feel, but literally it's like you know that when you flush the toilet, the water goes out and it comes back. That's exactly how my body is every single morning. But I get up early. I get up early, like 4:30, 5 o'clock. I do my little bit of work, and then when it's time, I take care of my personal business. And by about 7:38, I generally, if weather permits, it's exercise time. Because my thought is simply is I am juggling quite a bit between my company. First and foremost, I'm a family person, so I have a deep love for my wife. I've got a dear old, the absolute, probably true love of my life, my dog, Sophie, who's 15 and a half, blind and deaf. But that tail keeps wagging, and she gave me 15 of the greatest years a dog could give a person. And now it's my turn to take care of her, which I do. Family, I got to take care of, grandkids, a business, and then PBNSG. So my thought is always that once I get going in the morning, I want to get my workout done, because anything else, I'm good. It's like I'm not angry at anybody. I'm very even keeled for the most part. And, so I get my 2-hour, at least, maybe 3 if I'm lucky, workout. I come back, I take my shower. Now it's time to work. So then it allows me a chance to have a meal. Now, to let everybody know, I used to do some intermittent fasting. I believe in it. But recently I went back to just having either one of 2 things every day. So I have a bowl of oatmeal. I put in some raisins, and I have a concoction, and I will tell you what my secret spices are. I mix cinnamon spice with apple pie spice, with nutmeg and pumpkin pie spice. I mix it together, and I put whatever fruit I love and I have on it, and my soy milk. It could be almond. If it's oat milk, be careful. Look at if it has oil. I just noticed that oat milk does have it, but you could have rice milk. There's a lot of alternative milks that taste good. I happen to like soy milk. And I have that in the morning. And the next day, I will have one of the biggest kale salads. And I'll take kale with arugula and spinach. and Swiss chard. I'll mix all this together. And I've been like on this life search for the great salad dressing, and then I found it. I take a lime, I cut it in half, I sprinkle it, I add a little pepper to it, I massage it with my hands, I leave it on the counter, and then I get to sit there and work and have the biggest bowl of kale. So I toggle between those two. I do my work. For lunchtime, I will have the opposite. So if I have kale in the morning, it's usually oatmeal for lunch and vice versa. Excuse me. For dinner, it varies. It could be something with beans. It could be something, there's a couple restaurants I go to and I have learned to batch cook. So now my new thing is I'm into Oriental noodle vegetable soup. But during these hot days, I'll go pretty light. I just will go light because what I realized is, number one, if I miss a meal, I'm not going to die. I'll be okay if I miss a meal. Secondly, as long as if I'm hungry, good time to have vegetables and fruits. You can have as many as you want, as much as you want. So that's usually my day, and I usually end my day close to 9 o'clock, and then I cuddle up with my wife until I fall asleep. And the good news is I go right to bed. I mean, I've had a long day every day, and I'm enjoying my life.
No, I think I can see that your schedule, even though it's a full schedule, is very regimental schedule. And that I tell all my patients and all my friends and followers that, if you want to be healthy, if you want to be happy, if you want to live long, if you want to be a good father, husband, wife, parent, and if you want to be successful in life, have some kind of timetable and some kind of regimen. And I think even though it may take some time to set a schedule, but once you start it, like you said, for 60 days, it becomes a second nature. And I think you reap so many benefits. You become just so much successful that, I try to do the same thing. I have my walk every day. I sleep 7 to 8 hours. I read every day. I do this Facebook Live every day. And I think when you become organized and when you have some kind of a system going, I think you can achieve so much. So are you taking any medication right now?
That's a great question. Um, it's a very interesting question because I am whole food, plant-based, no oil, but my body is a cholesterol machine. So when I talk to Dr. Esselstyn, he says, don't worry about the number, you're eating perfectly. My cardiologist says, listen, I still believe you should take, in conjunction with your food choices, a pill. So I do take something called Repathia. It's injectable. It's a little EpiPen, not painful. So I take that once every 2 weeks. I take a quarter aspirin. And then I've been taking, because of the COVID, I just will share with you, I take a little bit of zinc, okay?
Yep.
And then up here, I've got a vitamin D and a vitamin C. Now, normally, I would just take a B12, which I have to take anyway, and a vitamin C. And I take the vitamin C in conjunction with a lot of oranges because sometimes my iron goes a little bit low and my hands and feet tingle a little bit. But when I take a bunch of oranges every day, it goes away. But I think during these times, having a vitamin D and zinc, from what I've read, is not a bad supplement. I'm not a big fan of pills, but really I'm only on one prescriptive medicine.
So, I mean, this is again an absolute success stories. Like many of my patients, when I see them, they are on like 5 medications, sometimes even on 10 medications. 65 and above, Medicare population, there are 3 to 5 chronic disease. Many of them are not even able to walk. Many of them have very poor sleep. So I think at your age, to be on minimum medications is just something of an exception. So, I mean, that brings me to the next question, which is a very important question, that now you have achieved this tremendous success for yourself. And now you're taken up the mission to help not thousands, but millions. Tell us about your organization, PBNSG, how big it is, what people can do to join, how much it costs, what programs do you offer. Be as descriptive as you want, because I want all my followers to be part of your organization. Can they do it online also?
Well, first, let me just say that I think it was Dr. Greger who says we don't live longer, we die slower. So when you tell me about the pills, it's amazing to me because I've got some family members who are on 6 or more pills. And, like I keep on asking, like, who does the deep research, how they interact? So trust me, I totally agree with you. And the goal for anybody over 60 is no pills or one or two, but if you could replace it with something natural, try it. Okay, now the organization. I'm really proud to say that this organization started, it's going on almost 7 years. We today have over 7,400 members. The key part of the organization is something called small groups. And really, I've got a few friends who are in AA, and I saw how helpful little community meetings do for them. And I mirrored PBNSG after that. Because what I realize is to make a change from, standard American diet to whole food plant-based is so difficult. Some people have to do it overnight like me. Most people will do it a little bit at a time, but all of a sudden traveling is tougher. Going to restaurants is tougher. The world's not set up for it. So I thought, wouldn't it be great to be around like-minded people who are your neighbors? So we started with a few small groups, and today we have 54 small groups in Michigan and around the United States, and we are looking to expand strategically. So let me just say that in Michigan, and by the way, there's no cost to join PBNSG, no cost. We do have a plethora of programming, from speakers, which Dr. Shah is going to be a speaker later on this year to our group. But we also had, today I spoke to Dr. Esselstyn and Dr. Campbell. They're going to be part of our speaking group. Dr. Bellardo has agreed to do it, Dr. Furman. So we're going to have a Hall of Fame of speakers this year. Rip Esselstyn will be speaking as well. So we also do cooking classes. So we've got a series of chefs and cooks that will be doing whole food plant-based. And by the way, I've seen your wife do the cooking. Amazing. Another reason why you keep her around, right? She is a heck of,
She's one of the best cook. She beats my mom. I thought my mom was the best cook, but now my wife is the best cook. My mom is second best cook now.
Well, I want to say that I would really appreciate coming up to Okemos and you showing me how to make a little pita bread with just whole wheat and water.
Yes.
If you could teach me that.
Yeah.
I'd be so happy.
My wife can make it in half an hour. And in India, my mom would make it every day. And even in America, we make it 2-3 times a week, and it's fresh. It's totally fresh,
I want her. Okay, so listen, it's kind of nice us Americans, we invite ourselves. I want to be invited to your house. I want your wife to show me how to do it.
You are coming with your wife, and you can even stay in a night with us, and we can talk all night. Yeah.
Well, okay, so the organization has these small groups, and let me just say that if anybody out there with your big following is interested in starting a small group in their community, there's some requirements. Number one, you have to be a doctor, a nurse, a nutritionist, a dietitian, or be connected to one who is, because at the end of the day, people ask questions and you need to have a connection with a health professional. Secondly, you have to live it. You have to be an example of what whole food plant-based living is. And trust this fact, I can look at anybody, and if they tell me they're whole food plant-based, I know if they're telling the truth or not, because there's a certain kind of look. First of all, they're pretty thin, okay? I call myself trim now, not thin, trim. So you could just tell. So you got to live the lifestyle. Secondly, you got to have third, you got to have a location that's scalable. Hopefully not your home, but if it would be, we will talk about it. And a marketing plan, because I need to understand, like today we started a group and connected people in Boise, Idaho. And they had to share a marketing plan of how they're going to do it. Could be through Meetup, could be flyers, whatever it takes. But we're just not going to offer hosting to anybody. We want to make sure we have the right host. So small groups is very, very important. Our classes are very important. Our cooking classes are. But we've also done a few unique things. Number one, we did doctors teaching doctors. So we've got 4 or 5 whole food plant-based doctors in the areas of cardiology, general practitioner, gut biome, which is going to be very big in the near future, and diabetes. They came together. We did a half-an-hour segments, and we could teach any community about the benefits of whole food plant-based. We also did I wrote a little book. I'm not talking about it too much, but it's called The Gurney Promise. So if you want to start a small group in your town, I don't want you to go through what I did. It's 81 pages of how do you start a small group in your town. So it's kind of the Bible of starting a small group, and that's available once you become selected as a host. We also have something called medical course material. So the backstory of that is, and this is where I get so much respect for young doctors. Here I am, first and second year medical students. We're up at Wayne State. We are a whole food plant-based group there at the medical school. And the head of curriculum came to me and said, I want you to develop a curriculum that would include whole food plant-based so we can put it into our curriculum. So we got 14 young first and second year medical students, and we spent the next year and a half coming up with 4 to 6 items of the 9 systems of the body. It was vetted by Dr. Michael Clapper and Brenda Davis. So it was as good as it can be. We presented it, and then the politics came in. He said, you know what, we can't take this on because until it gets on the board exam, we don't want to teach it in our classes. And I said to him, well, that's kind of a chicken and egg thing. Like, how can we ever get it on the board if you don't teach it in classes? Yeah. And so that's another thing that I'm holding on to. It's still perfect. And if somebody has a way to get into a university, the beautiful thing about this is it's not a curriculum, a standalone curriculum. We wanted to make it easy for the professors. So we said, hey, we'll just give you 4 to 6 items to add to the 9 systems of the body for your educational talks. Of course, they came back and, well, what do you want us to get rid of? And I'm like, listen, I don't care what you get rid of, but it should always start with nutrition before pills or procedures. I have that available. So that's kind of, who we are, what we're doing. We're involved.
So let me ask you a question, because I think many of our listeners and followers will want to start that small group. So if they want to start small group, obviously they will become a member. One of them will be a host, and they will get that 81-page book. And then small groups will form. They will have a venue, or they will host at a house, whatever's easier. Obviously, after this COVID-19 crisis is a little bit down. And so when they join in the small group, do they have to pay for the meetings to get all this help? And do they get food at these meetings?
That's a great question. Okay, so first of all, there's no charge for small groups because we're really having a host open up their house or a library or a central location. And we ask the host to give a third of it educational, but usually the other 2/3 is we do potlucks. So people can then exchange. Listen, everyone loves to eat, and there's so many great foods out there. And what we do is in most of the small groups, we do a dinner, a potluck, and we ask people to write down an ingredient list. So that way, when they try something, they can take a little card and then try it at home. And it has to be no oil. So there's no question about that. And as far as the organization, we offer something brand new. We just started this past year. We did 2 big initiatives. One was we developed one of the first, if not the only, 150 whole food, plant-based, no oil recipe book. Now, it's called Perfectly Plant-Based. You can get it on our website, pbnsg.org. But here's what's so great about the cookbook. First of all, it's no oil. But we've got 26 contributing chefs from all over the country. So we sent an open letter. Who's interested in helping us create a no oil cookbook? All 26 are contributed. Wow. So you've got different recipes of all different kinds, all no oil. The other thing we did is we started what we call a Sprout Club, which gives you a little bit of our merchandise, and you'll take a look at it. I was going to wear one of my shirts, but some people love it, some people hate it, so I'll keep it in my closet for now. We've got some shirts, got some merchandise, but it's also a place where we could do a discussion board. You could get discounts for all of our classes and all of our meetings. And I don't mind saying this. All of PBNSG's revenue generally would come between February and July. But we all know what's happened in late February through July at this moment. So we are in desperate need. We're treading water as an organization. But boy, if we could ever one day get some money or get a donation that would be sizable, we'd be able to open us up nationally, internationally very quickly because we've got everything ready to go. But it like anything, it costs money. We need a few more people to do it. But the organization is doing wonderfully well, and we would love to have anybody join us. No charge to join.
No, I think I absolutely love the idea of the small groups. Number one, it's free. Number two, it's with your own known people. So many of them are neighbors, many of them are friends. It's potluck, so you get to eat, each other's recipes, and then you take home how to make it at yourself. Obviously, very healthy food, and I think it's more like Din Ornishes. It creates the relationship, it creates the community feeling, and that has a significant benefit in terms of heart disease, in terms of many of the chronic disease, depression. Plus, I think it gives you a little bit of a challenge to see who is doing better than you. So I think to me, this idea of small groups at no cost is almost like you are providing what Weight Watchers provides at a cost, a free thing to everybody and making them their own. So I think this is a big dedication from you. And I sincerely believe that our listeners and our followers, they should look up your organization, be part of it, be part of the Sprout Club, and definitely donate as much as they can and actually make this organization so strong that all of us benefit. I think I'm going to do my part. I'm going to ask all our followers to do it. We're going to keep bringing you back every 3 to 6 months to get the update and whatever other programs do you offer. So that brings my next question. Tell us about your friend and your cardiologist, Joel Kahn. He's coming on our page in 2 weeks. So he was gracious enough to come. He's one of my mentor. I listened to him many times. I have all his books. He's a very funny guy, a great person. So please tell us 2-3 minutes about Joe Kahn. I'd really like to hear from you because you know him more than anybody else.
Well, I'm going to say this. Above anything, he is brilliant. Okay, I mean, he was summa cum laude of his med school class at U of M. You got to be pretty darn brilliant to be at that level. Secondly, the thing I probably admire the most is, over the 7 years, I've leaned on him a lot to give talks, to join me at locations. He's never said no to me. He's always been there when I asked him. And yes, he is outspoken. That's okay too. But the fact is that he's been a caring friend and my cardiologist, but a caring friend to the organization without hesitation. And I really admire, and he's a hard worker. He never stops working. He's like you. He never stops working. Why? Because you're both very healthy. But I would say anything more, I want your listeners to very entertaining, very energetic, very smart, and funny. It's a pretty lethal combination.
Yeah, that's great. I think we are really looking forward to having him come there. But let me offer whatever Dr. Khan has done. I will try my best to duplicate whatever he is doing. We need more people like you, more people like Dr. Khan, and I will do my part to support you, support Dr. Khan, and support your organization every day. And I will do that. I mean, I've been doing it, and I will do it starting today every day. So my next question to you is, please, you've been actually in collaboration with a lot of the great giants in this healthy lifestyle movement, whole food, plant-based, no oil. You already mentioned about Esselstyn, Brenda Davis, Furman. So please give us, whatever the top names all our followers should know about, buy their books, watch them on YouTube. So who are your top collaborators who you would trust to have any day give a talk to our followers?
Well, that's, I've been very lucky because aside from Dean Ornish, and by the way, Dr. Dean Ornish, if you're watching, you're the only one who has not come to PBNSG. I admire you. I'm calling you out. You want to charge me all that money? But I need you. You should come see us. You'd be proud. But now we go through the list and, listen, I mean, I love Dr. Esselstyn and Dr. Campbell. They're the absolute giants of the giants because They were there when there was nothing there. And I could imagine what their life was like. I've actually spent enough time with Dr. Esselstyn to think that people thought he was a quack. He was, they laughed at him. Well, who's laughing now? I'm saying, Dr. Campbell, Dr. Colin Campbell. I have a special love for him. It was interesting. He came to Michigan to give a talk. And you know how our winters are. And you'll like this because you're up in Okemo. So he was scheduled to talk to the med school at Michigan State University. The schedule, we were gonna bring dinner to all the students, and the snow hit. And it was the worst snow that Michigan had seen. And he looks at me, he says, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, we've got students up there at Michigan State. Let's go see them. Well, from my house, where he was at, to Michigan State would be about 65 minutes. You ready for this? It took us over 3.5 hours to get there. But when we walked in the door, so we're supposed to start at like 4 o'clock, we got there by 7. Every student was waiting, and we fed them all, and he gave a talk. What was, to me, the most amazing thing, I got to spend 6 hours alone with him. Wow. And I'm such a random person. Boy, were we talking about all kinds of crazy stuff. Don't ask me what we were talking about, but I got the skinny and a lot of stuff. And I loved being with him. I have loved him and Dr. Esselstyn, but there's a lot of others that I do admire. So here's a list of them. And again, what I've been trying to do is I'm trying to create a summit for all these people. So I'm calling everybody out again. I'm doing a call out on your show today. Let's spend time on the 95% we agree on and stop complaining about the 5% we disagree on. Let's spend them in the positive, not on the negative. So all of them believe in the same stuff. They just believe a little bit different in some areas. Some like more supplements. Some say oil's a little bit okay. I'm not in judgment of any of them. I just know the body of their work is positive and whole food plant-based. But I've had Dr. Furman a bunch of times. I have had Dr. Pam Popper a bunch of times. Dr. Gregor has always been here. Each time he writes a book, he shows up. And one of my special favorites is Dr. Neil Bernard. He has done so many wonderful things and generous to PBNSG. But the list goes on and on. A secret fan is Dr. Robert Otzfeld. He has done a few talks, and what he does in New York is just absolutely amazing. I have high respect for Dr. Scott Stoll, and he's, out of he does a Plantrition project.
Plantrition, yep.
I've had Chef AJ come up, and she's a hoot. She's interesting and energetic.
Yeah, I've been on to her show, yeah.
Yeah, I've had all the Esselstyns show up, and so I mean, we've been blessed to have the who's who grace our stage. And what I think is the most fun is, listen, the speakers, they do their speak. But when we have our meetings, when we had the physical meetings at the school, which could house 1,100 people, there were those special moments. Every time we had a speaker meeting, we'd average between 400 to 900 people. And there was an energy there that I have never felt in my life, because it was like people who were seeing each other again. That, the most beautiful thing about PBNSG and small groups is you're around like-minded people with no judgment. So when we get to have a big group together, it's like people who have seen each other at other events see each other again. And it's like the biggest group of love and family. And there's a vibe I get that I've never felt in my life around people. So I can't wait for us to get back to where we were.
I think, what I see, Paul, what I see is that I see you as a Zubin Mehta, the conductor of the great orchestra. I think we are, myself and all the people you quoted, we are carrying our own instrument. But person like you, being a conductor, making this orchestra go so strong. So I think we thank you, because you are putting us all together to help the people. And I think we need a leader, we need an organizer to put all of us together. We all are busy in our practice. Some of us don't have the organizational skills. Some of us don't have the business degree like you have. And I think a person like you can make this movement very successful, because until now, this movement was very random, very fragmented. A lot of these giants were working very hard. but it wasn't going anywhere because many of them did not have the business sense or business skills and business degrees. So we thank you for putting this organization. And let me ask you, I have two more questions. One question is, what do you see future of America in terms of obesity, chronic disease? Do you think we have a good future? And do you think with your kind of movement, your kind of organization, we can turn the tide around?
That's a good question. Here's how I feel, and I'm sorry if it's a little sad, which is until it now here's my honest position. Until it gets into the medical schools where it's taught to young future doctors, here's the problem. You take most doctors who are 40 or 50 and older, it's a difficult sell, whole food, plant-based, no oil. You see, the thing is that until somebody goes that 60 days and feels healthy, they have no basis to judge. They think they're feeling good when they're on the pills, but long-term, there's side effects. There's always side effects. So until it gets into the medical schools, so young doctors first learn about nutrition and how it affects the body and health, that until that happens, it will continue to be random. And I'm looking at the list of my speakers. And the fact is it unfortunately, like Michael Clapper was another one that I really respect. But the problem is right now is that a great many of these people are getting older. And the fact is that, we had one of our speakers who was absolutely brilliant, don't need to say a name, and he talked at University of Michigan. And at the end, I get the feedback from the students. And while everything he was saying was absolutely proven, medical, factual, I got a lot of replies saying, can't relate, 50-year difference. So what I'm saying is we have got to get it into medical schools. And when that happens, then our nation will be healthier. Now, keep in mind this. At the core, I'm a planet person and I'm an animal lover. But I long since realized that until we get our humans right, our planet and our animals are going to suffer. So let's get the humans right. How do we get the humans right? We've got to educate. And then we have to make it available to all. Because when I go into Detroit and it takes me 10 miles to get to the next grocery store, how is that fair? So there's a lot of big steps that have to take place. And again, the ideas are there. We've got the foundation, but we don't have the money. And if you're going to take on something like this, Dr. Shah, you got to have a lot of money. And that's something we don't have.
I think I agree with you, and I think I see your vision. I see your game plan that go and educate the young doctors, and they will become the soldiers in this movement. At the same time, I personally believe, and I'm going to prove it to you, that if I can educate every single American about this whole food plant-based and start a grassroots movement at a very low-cost social media platform and excite them with giving these multiple lectures, and I think make them aware that this thing is available, this thing is possible, it's very low cost, change their mind, one social media contact at a time. I think we have now, like I said, we have almost 50,000 followers now. And I think this movement is only 6 months old. So my sincere hope is that people in America, people in the world are ready. Social media is our weapon. We need to use social media as much as possible to reach to every person's house, every person's pantry, every person's refrigerator, and every doctor's office to demand that we want this healthy lifestyle. And I think we will do that. I think with a person like you, with us, with the doctors, and all the doctors joining this movement, we will do that. And I'm with you. And my last question to you is, what is your final message to an average American that how can they be not scared of changing their lifestyle, thinking that they will be a oddball in their family, oddball in their community? Because many times when people talk about going vegan, whole food, plant-based, they almost feel like they are coming from different planet. So how can we help people not be kind of labeled as that these people are different people? How can they do that?
Well, it's interesting because in my family, they've seen my transformation, and yet a good part of my family, not some of them have gone plant-based, but a bigger majority have not. And if my family's not going to go 100% whole food plant-based, then most families are not. So my thought is simply, if you are going to do it, start by doing it for the most important person in your life, you. You have to be strong. You have to be vigilant. And you have to be committed to 60 days to make a change. But what I would say is go to your doctor, get a full lipid panel workup, find out all your numbers, and then go 100% whole food, plant-based, no oil. Try it for 60 days. You could do anything for 60 days if you had to. And then get that test again. And when you see the results after 60 days, now you've got a committed investment. And then you just keep working on it. And again, all I can say is if it takes you overnight, or if you need baby steps, please join us. We'll tell you how to do the baby steps. There's a lot of exchanges you could do. And trust the fact that your taste buds will change. But until you get a sense of true health at your age, at our age, I'm not saying at 18, 19, 20, 30. I'm saying when you hit 50 and you all of a sudden you start to get ill health and then you go plant-based and you get your health back, woo, it is a great feeling. I mean, I beat my body up my whole life, and at 62, I'm never sore. Is that a gift or what? So I'm just saying it's not easy, but what is, anything worthwhile is not easy. I mean, it's your health is all that matters. And what I look at is I got a family and I want to see my grandkids get older and I want to play with them. And so far I could do that. Not today, not over the last few months, but I plan on doing a lot of things with them actively. So the only way to do it is to be whole food
I think I
plant-based.
agree with you. And I always have believed that when you are an innovator, when you are doing something which is much more different and meaningful, initially society will ridicule you, society, including your family, they will ignore you, they will actually outcast you. But once they see the changes in you, changes you are making to the society, they actually not only will accept you, and eventually they will start doing it themselves. And to be honest with you, one day they will have that apology for ignoring you for a long time. So I think I agree with you. I think if we become the change, eventually when they see us healthier, better radiant skin, more productive, better sleep, better sex life, I think a lot of people will say, I want to do it too. So just keep doing it, and people will actually start coming to your camp very soon, because the effects are so instant and they are so powerful that every person will want to be like you. So just be patient. Just don't take it personally. And like you said, keep doing what is necessary. So again, Paul, I truly appreciate you coming on. You are coming back 3-4 times a year. We have a long relationship for next 40-50 years, and we will keep pushing this hard until we are successful. And I'm with you all the way. So let me conclude here. Thank you everybody for listening today, watching. Please share on your Facebook. This video will be on YouTube in a few hours, so you can watch it. Please share the YouTube video with your friends also. Again, we have about 50,000 followers. I sincerely request you to have at least invite 25 friends and family to join our page. We post every day 4 or 5 times different health information. So please be part of this movement. Let's learn together, grow together, motivate each other, and be healthy, happy, and live long. Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.